Hello, baby. It's June the 5th, 2017, and this one's going to be the first part to a four-part series in which I describe to you the story of each set of my grandparents, or not my grandparents, my great-grandparents, four sets of them.
This will be part one. It's going to be focusing on Wladyslaw and Sophia Slavinsky. We're going to be focusing on this set, the first of four. Today, I was able to do some research. I was able to find out some things, hit up certain documents, and I was able to figure out basically the general story of each one of my great-grandparents, each set. Alright, mind you, that it's always best to continue to gain more and more details and figure out, hear stories, talk to people, listen to people, find out documents to find out more details as far as pertaining to the lives of these people. But however, I did notice in researching my ancestry that you are able to infer a great deal of things simply by matching up the birth, the death, when they had babies, where they moved to. These sort of details are documented most times through public publications. Alright, so you can find that out. And I did that. And basically, it tells a general story. When you align it with history, history books, and you align it with the history of the places where your great-grandparents lived, and you align it up with their lifestyle, you can basically figure out their general story. Alright? And of course, there are many more details to come. But I'm here today in this four-part series to tell you the general stories of my great-grandparents. That'd be your great-great-grandparents. Alright? We're going to start off with this couple. Alright? Wladyslaw and Sophia Slavinsky. Alright? That's couple number one. Alright? They came from Poland, alright, because they were both Polish, alright. They were both Polish immigrants, these people, and they came to America. Not together, they actually came separately. And I had to let you know that there's definitely some common denominators in all these couples, and we're definitely going to get on to what those are. But I do have to let you know that they all immigrated to America, obviously. The people from Poland, Wladyslaw and Sophia, who later got married, they were actually not the first people to step foot on American soil or territory. That, in fact, that's my great-great-grandparents, which would be your great-great-great-grandparents. That would be Marcos and Francisca Duron. They actually got to Texan territory, to be more specific, but American territory in in 1898, somewhere between 1898 and 1900. They stepped foot on to American soil. Soon after that, you'll have Sophia, and I don't really know her maiden name, but she stepped foot on American soil from Poland in 1905. Alright, she was 6 years old, a 6-year-old little girl, so you can imagine she came with her parents in 1905. Now, when you do a little research on the history of Poland and in relation to the United States of America, you begin to note that 1905 is significant in that it was the beginning of one of three waves of Polish immigration to the United States of America, and by far the largest one. It was the beginning of that wave of it was the beginning of the biggest wave of Polish immigration in U.S. history, basically, is when Sophia stepped foot onto American soil when she was 6 years old. Alright. That wave of immigration lasted until about 1914, at which point Wladyslaw, my great-grandfather, on my grandfather's, my father's great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, alright, Wladyslaw, he stepped on to American soil in 1914 at the very tail end of this huge Polish immigration wave to America. Basically, in the closing moments when you think about it, because Wladyslaw stepped onto American soil from Poland in the same year, in fact, that World War I broke out. Alright? And there's a lot of different variables that led into World War I. Basically, all sort of posturing around Europe and Eastern Europe and Asia and Russia, all sort of posturing from various groups. Alright? And some guy got killed. This guy, Franz Ferdinand, he got killed, and that's basically a straw broke camel's back. That rubbed somebody the wrong way, and it started war. Started conflict, and we all gotta understand conflict always has everything to do with economic power. It always has something to do with it. So it's very economic oriented, this conflict that took place after this dude Franz Ferdinand was killed. Alright. But basically all sort of conflict broke out during World War One. After Wladyslaw barely got to America, World War One broke out, and please understand that all sort of casualties, all sort of bloodshed, all sort of conflict and strife took place in and around Poland for show. For show it did, right? So Wladyslaw, he narrowly escaped that, and within a couple years of being in America, I mean, Wladyslaw got here off the boat about 18 years old. Within a couple years, he met a girl. He met Sophia, who had already been in America for about 9 years. He met her, and they started making babies. They fell in love, got married, started making babies, all sort of babies. All right, and so that's their story. That's how they met. Or I mean, basically, I mean, you know what I'm saying? They were both from Poland. You understand? And so certain forms of natural segregation just did take place. Like I said, Polish people, they're out there, man. You know, they're very integrational. If you know what I'm saying, like people like to integrate with Polish people and vice versa. But however, in this situation as immigrants, they kind of stuck to themselves, and there are big Polish communities around the Northeast too. And also Chicago has the largest Polish concentration usually. But anyways, my great-grandparents, they stepped off the boat for a reason. The reason is that they had common interests. Alright, and you're going to find out that it doesn't matter which great-grandparents you're talking about, they all basically have commonalities to include common interests. Alright, so there's a difference between America and Poland. The Poland that was just about to burst into World War One. In fact, there's going to be blood running in the streets. There was a difference between Poland and America, and might I add that, you know, both America and all sort of Europe and all the surrounding areas involved in the World War One stuff, they both had posturing taking place. There's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of people jockeying for positions, certainly, and a lot of, you know, people got hurt feelings and people got killed and stuff, certainly. A lot of posturing in both places. Here's the difference. The important difference to note about America was the idea of opportunity. Right? Because the difference about America, and if we're to put it most simply, is you had the opportunity to perhaps get some guns on land. What you gotta understand is that was not the opportunity in the motherland, if you will. In Poland, that really wasn't the case. Right? So these people, you understand, some people, and they have a Polish word for it. Some people call this migration, the biggest migration of Polish people to America. They call it the four bread migration. Basically, most people in this migration were poor as dirt. They didn't have land. They didn't have guns. I'm saying they didn't have that kind of opportunity for freedom. And so they heard about America. They said, you know what, shoot, we're going to have to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps for show. We ain't going to have no money, but you know what? Let's go to America, and there's a chance. There's a slight chance we'll be able to get guns and land. And if we can get those things, perhaps we can attain freedom. You understand? If people weren't exactly free in Poland, dude, there's so much posturing. There's so much, you know what I'm saying? You had to get what you could get and shut your mouth about it, basically. There were no opportunities hardly in Poland. This is why there was a great migration to America. They wanted the opportunity for guns and land. That's what they wanted. That's why they came. Alright, so I'm going to end off on this note as far as them, and of course, hopefully we'll add some more details to their story later, but of course, Wladyslaw met Sophia. Within a couple years, they were in America. They were making babies in America, in New Jersey specifically. The Hudson County area, Bayonne, New Jersey. They were making some babies. Alright, meanwhile, I gotta let you know, over there in Poland, they were having World War One. Basically, a lot of people died and stuff. That war took about 4 years, and then it kind of blew over. After those 4 years, while Wladyslaw and Sophia are living happily in America, the war blows over, and Poland can try to rebuild after all the death and carnage. In fact, they do, because Polish people are sexy as hell, dude. People love to integrate with Polish people and stuff, so they wind up having all sort of babies. After World War One, Poland and Polish people, they had all sort of babies, dude. They were bursting at the seams with babies, alright? So, it wasn't but a couple decades later that you have a World War II breakout, right? And it breaks out all over Poland like this. Again, there's all sort of deaths in Poland as far as World War II. So, between World War I and World War II, you have a Poland, which is a plot of land that people are desperately trying to rebuild. And meanwhile, they're sexy as hell, so they're all making babies. And only a couple decades later, guess what? World War II breaks out. basically the same factions. Some have switched sides and things, but it's all posturing. It's basically allying up with other people and trying to strong arm other people. Posturing breaks out, and that is World War #2. Interesting thing to note about World War #2 is that it's only decades after World War #1. Wladyslaw and Sophia successfully avoided World War #1 by coming to America. Meanwhile, their children, my grandfather, he winds up fighting in World War #2. He gets pulled in this conflict that happened all the way around the world. Reaches America, and he winds up getting pulled in. My great uncle, who I'm named after, he winds up getting pulled in at a very, very young age into this World War #2. Right, we're gonna leave off there. We're gonna holler at you later about the other ones, but just understand before we do, guns and property were the common denominator in each and every one. But I'll holler at you later about the other ones. Anyways, it's June 5th, 2017.